We could talk about Brentford then. Coming off, they're playing in the midweek. We're recording before that, and then they lost over the weekend at Goodison Park to the mighty Toffees.
That was a Sean Dyche like wet dream win right there.
That
By
was
the way,
beautiful stuff.
scoring
The
the
only thing
first
it was
minute,
missing, was like howling winds out
right?
there.
Maybe some rain.
Yeah, the weather. I mean, the weather is bad. Just the wind wasn't
Yeah,
it wasn't as windy as he would have liked. Brentford -110 hosting Leicester. The Foxes +275. The draw is +260. This looks like a Brentford spot, matchup wise, the number wise. Leicester's terrible. Anthony, I'll be on the bees. What about you?
Yeah, I will be too. I think this is kind of not that different from what we just saw with Fulham. Leicester, doesn't quite have the same level of regression coming. They're kind of just sitting where Fulham should be, and they're kind of comparable to Fulham for me at this point on a true talent and like power rating perspective. And I have Brentford closer to -130 here. I am surprised by this number. I think there are teams that can cause problems for Brentford when Brentford is a favorite. Fulham and Leicester are like not those kind of teams because they just play a style that leaves them open at the back more so than like a traditional defensive team who's going to let you have the ball and dare you to beat them with it. That's not really what Fulham and Leicester do. And so I think this kind of profiles similarly to that matchup. There is a rest advantage. Brentford goes on the road to Southampton on Wednesday before, we'll know the result of that. Either way, I still think +100 is short, and I will never hesitate to play against Leicester. They concede a ton of big scoring chances. They stink on set pieces, and Brentford, creates the big chances and wins this one at home, where they're much better.
Yeah, it does. It does feel a lot like that Fulham match from a couple weeks ago, and you brought up a good point about like how much styles matter with teams. I think like Brentford. We saw it in that Everton match that they were. I don't think they were bad at all. Yeah, Everton gets that early goal, and then the two teams kind of played out to a coin flip from there. But this Leicester team is like made for Brentford. I think just made for them.
Brentford came out flat early. I thought they were pretty bad the first 20-25 minutes, and then they kind of kicked into gear and showed why they're the better team. But they definitely were a little flat, but I don't expect that to happen at home as nearly as frequently. Yeah. And so, it's a much better spot.
And it's just like a trickier thing to match to kind of wade into when you're playing that version of Everton versus a Leicester City team that you just can't trust them with the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Wants to have the ball and then likes to give you the ball.
Yeah, exactly. BJ, what are your thoughts?
No, I think it's slam dunk Brentford spot. And I think the matchup sets up perfectly for him because why Brentford is so good against, the big six and teams that like to hold a lot of possession is they can sit back and they can direct counter you better than any team in the Premier League. And Leicester is a very different style of team in the bottom half of the table where they're a top half team in the Premier League in terms of average possession. But if you take their average possession against non-big six sides, it's actually one of the highest in the Premier League outside of, I think, Brighton. And I mean, Brentford is just going to probably sit back in their 3-5-2 and then just direct counterattack them through the middle of the pitch and just create chance after chance after chance. And Anthony mentioned it. Brentford, obviously, one of the most efficient set piece teams in the Premier League, and Leicester is one of the worst defending them. So Leicester's without Wout Face. They're without Vestergaard, so they're thin defensively. I mean, this is a slam dunk Brentford spot here. I mean, Brentford, I mentioned it last week, but against the bottom half of the table, and they still, created 2 expected goals against Everton. Against the bottom half of the table, they have a plus 5.2 expected goal differential. And in their last 5 matches, they've created at least 2 expected goals in 4 of them and 9.3 overall. So this is still a really, really good offense. And obviously they are much better at the Brentford Community Stadium than they are away from home. So I think this is a fantastic Brentford spot. I agree with you guys. I have Brentford projected at -120. So Brentford even money for me does have some value.